It started like any ordinary morning on Earth, the kind where the sun rises without asking permission, and people rush out of their doors clutching coffee cups. Dreams and anxieties. Somewhere in the middle of that daily chaos, in a city pulsing with life and noise, a 16-year-old boy named Malik stepped onto a crowded bus on his way to school. He was tall for his age, wore hand-me-down sneakers, and kept his headphones in most of the time, not to block out the world, but because the world rarely tried to talk to him. Malik had never seen himself as a hero. He wasn't the loudest kid, not the class valedictorian, and definitely not the one teachers called on first. But he had one thing: his mother's voice in his head, reminding him over and over, kindness is free, but it's worth more than gold. He didn't need a reason to do the right thing. So when he saw a pregnant woman step onto the bus that morning, looking pale and tired, he didn't hesitate. He stood up, offered her his seat, and gave her a warm, wordless smile. She was white, older than him, and seemed surprised, not just by his action, but maybe by the fact that anyone noticed her at all. She thanked him softly and sat down, her eyes meeting his just for a moment. The rest of the ride passed in silence. Malik didn't think much of it. He got off at his stop, tugged his hoodie up against the morning breeze, and walked away, unaware that in that small act, something had shifted. But this story isn't just about a seat on a bus. It's about ripple effects, about how moments we barely think twice about can echo through lives in ways we never imagined. Because what Malik didn't know, what no one knew at the time, was that the woman he gave his seat to wasn't just anyone. Her name was Evelyn Harrow, and while her life might have seemed ordinary from the outside, it was anything but. She came from old money, old power, and older secrets. And more importantly, she was carrying something much bigger than a child, something that involved Earth's place in the galaxy, and a very recent, very serious threat. You see, just 3 days earlier, the Galactic Council had sent Earth a message. Not a warning, a threat. For centuries, humanity had been observed, quietly, cautiously, and from a distance. Earth had always been considered a volatile, unpredictable world. Too war-prone, too emotional, too human. But lately, humans had been advancing at a pace that worried the elder races. I had begun whispering across the void. Our space engines were pushing limits that shouldn't be pushed. Our scientists were asking questions that, if answered, could unravel secrets older than the stars themselves. The message from the Council came as a narrow beam transmission, directed at the United Nations Space Office. Cold, formal, final, cease. All deep space expansion beyond Sector Theta 9. Failure to comply will result in orbital quarantine. Further advancement will be met with force. It wasn't a warning. It was a line drawn in the void. Earth's leaders panicked. Whispers flew between the military and science branches. Debates ignited about whether to halt or to defy. But before any consensus could form, a reply had already been sent back. Not from the government, not from the president, not even from a scientist or military commander. It was a single-page message, handwritten on aged floral stationery, sent through encoded channels no Earth tech could explain, and signed simply, with deepest thanks humanity. Nobody knew who sent it. The reply baffled both Earth's highest offices and the Galactic Council. Who responds to a threat with gratitude? That's when things got stranger. Surveillance satellites began glitching. Moons blinked out of orbit for microseconds before, returning. Alien vessels stationed in the far edges of known space started retreating without explanation. Something was changing, and fast. And in the middle of all this, Malik, the teenager with the kind eyes and tired backpack, received a note. It was delivered by hand. The paper was heavy, the envelope sealed with wax that shimmered like stardust. He found it tucked into his locker at school, completely out of place among the usual flyers and math homework. At first, he thought it was a joke, until he opened it. Inside were just 3 lines, written in the same handwriting as the message Earth had sent to the stars. You gave up your seat. Now we give you a choice. Are you ready to change everything? Malik blinked, the hallway noise around him fading. The letters on the page seemed to hum faintly, as if alive, as if waiting. He looked up, expecting to see someone watching. But the hallway was empty. That was the moment Malik's world, our world, began to unravel. And the truth? The truth was buried deeper than anyone imagined, tied to ancient treaties, hidden human potential, and a secret Evelyn Harrow had carried for far too long. But before we get to all that, you should know this. Sometimes, all it takes to start a revolution is giving up your seat. Malik stood frozen, the note in his hand trembling slightly as his mind raced to understand what he'd just read. The words looked simple, almost innocent, but something about them pulled at a thread deep inside him, like they were meant for him and no one else. He ran his fingers over the strange wax seal, still clinging to the edge of the envelope. It shimmered like oil on water, color shifting under the hallway lights. No school supply store sold anything like that. He glanced around again, just in case someone was watching, but the hallway remained quiet. Lockers lined both sides like silent sentinels, and the usual background chatter of students had faded into a low hum behind the thick school doors. It was like time had dipped for a moment, like the universe itself was holding its breath. Malik slipped the note back into his pocket, his heart beating faster than it should have for something that didn't make sense at lunch. He sat at his usual corner table, the one closest to the far window, where the sun hit just right, and the noise didn't seem as loud. His friends were laughing about something, probably a viral video or a game clip, but Malik barely heard them. He couldn't stop replaying the words over and over. Now we give you a choice. Are you ready to change everything? What choice? And who was we? He thought back to the woman on the bus, Evelyn. She'd barely spoken, but there was something about her presence, something grounded yet strange, like she didn't fully belong to the world they were both riding through. Could she have slipped the note into his locker? That didn't even make sense. How would she know where he went to school? Who was she really? Malik didn't get answers that day, or the next. But weird things started happening. It began small. His phone glitched just once. The time froze at 3:33 for an entire minute, no matter how many times he locked and unlocked the screen. Then there were the lights. Street lamps flickered when he passed under them. In his bedroom, the bulb above his desk would dim and then flare back up if he stared at it long enough, like it was reacting to him. And then there was the dream. He didn't remember falling asleep. 1 second he was lying in bed, eyes open, staring at the cracked ceiling. The next he was floating, no ground, no sky, just light. Soft, pulsing, alive. A voice, calm and clear, not male or female, spoke directly into his thoughts. You are not chosen. You are recognized. Then came a vision Earth from space. It was surrounded by invisible lines, like a spiderweb spun across stars. And through one of those lines, a thin silver beam of light was pushing, growing brighter with each second. He woke up gasping, the sheets soaked in sweat, but the words stayed burned into his memory. You are not chosen. You are recognized. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Evelyn Harrow sat in a quiet corner of an old private library. She wasn't reading. She already knew what the ancient books had to say. Instead, she stared out the window at the city skyline, one hand resting gently on her rounded stomach. The child inside her kicked once strong, deliberate. Soon, she whispered. A man approached her from the far side of the room. He wore a suit that didn't quite belong in this century, and moved like someone trained not to be noticed. His name was Elias, and he had been by Evelyn's side since before the Galactic Council even acknowledged Earth's existence. He received the note. Elias said quietly, "I know," Evelyn replied without turning. Elias paused. The Council suspects. The signal from Earth caught their attention again. "We're out of time." Evelyn finally looked at him. Her eyes were calm, ancient in a way that belied her appearance. "They'll come," she said. "They always do when they're afraid." "And him?" Elias asked. She gave a small, sad smile. "He's still human. That's what makes him dangerous." Back in Malik's world, normal things were starting to fall apart. At school, his teacher handed him a pop quiz he didn't remember hearing about. But what shocked him more was when he looked down at the paper. It was blank, until the words began writing themselves. Questions about quantum theory, dark energy, hyperspace fracture stuff he'd never even heard of. His fingers shook as he flipped the page over, but it was just as blank as before. When he looked up again, the quiz was gone, and his classmates were quietly writing answers to simple algebra problems. His teacher never noticed anything different. He didn't tell anyone, not his mom, not his best friend Josh. He tried to convince himself it was stress, or maybe he was coming down with something. But the more he tried to ignore it, the more. The world refused to cooperate. Later that week, as Malik walked home, he noticed a sleek black car parked on the street outside his apartment. It wasn't from around here. The windows were tinted too dark, the paint too clean. As he approached, the driver's window rolled down without a sound. Evelyn was behind the wheel. "You shouldn't be alone anymore," she said, like they were, continuing a conversation they'd started weeks ago. "There are eyes on you now." Malik stopped in his tracks. "Why me?" "Because you were kind when no one asked you to be," she said softly. "Because you acted without needing a reason." "That's not a superpower." "No," she said. "It's rarer." He looked at her, unsure whether to be afraid or curious. She opened the passenger door. "You want answers?" she asked. "Get in." Malik hesitated, then stepped forward. The door closed behind him with a gentle click, like sealing away the life he knew. They drove in silence for several minutes. The city blurred past in streaks of neon and shadows. Eventually, Evelyn pulled into an underground lot. A steel elevator waited at the far end. She led him to it without speaking, pressing a pattern of buttons that made no sense to Malik. The elevator dropped, not like a regular elevator. This felt like falling between folds of paper. When the doors opened, they were no longer under the city. The space was vast, circular, walls lined with glowing glyphs that shifted when Malik tried to focus on them. In the center stood a black monolith, pulsing slowly, like it was breathing. People, humans, and others moved around the space in quiet harmony. Some wore uniforms with Earth symbols. Others didn't look human at all. "This is one of Earth's hidden outposts," Evelyn said. "We've had contact for decades. But it's always been quiet, cautious, until now." Malik turned in place, stunned. "You said I have a choice," he said finally. "What is it?" Evelyn looked at him. Really looked. "To know the truth," she said. "Or to forget this ever happened and go back to your life." Malik didn't answer. Not yet, but in that moment, he realized nothing about. His world was ever what it seemed, and whatever choice he made, he wouldn't be able to unmake it. Not after this. Malik stood in the center of that strange underground chamber, every inch of him telling him to turn and run, but something deeper, quieter held him there. The glyphs on the walls whispered in a language he didn't understand, yet somehow felt. He glanced at Evelyn, who now walked a step ahead, speaking to someone dressed in a sleek silver uniform. A tall woman with short cropped hair and eyes that shimmered with the same. strange light as the monolith. They don't trust him yet, the woman said, voice low but firm. He's just a kid. He's more than that, Evelyn replied. You just haven't seen it yet. Malik didn't say anything, but the words lodged in his chest like stones. More than that? He didn't feel like more. He felt like a 16-year-old with overdue homework and a growing list of unanswered questions. And yet, he also felt like something had shifted inside him. Since that note, since the dream, since this all started. Evelyn returned and gestured for him to follow. There's something you need to see. They passed through a set of doors that hissed open at their approach. Inside was a chamber, unlike anything Malik had seen before. A giant circular table sat in the center, covered in projected maps and starfields, some he recognized, others entirely unfamiliar. Around it sat a group of people, scientists, diplomats, and a few whose skin or eyes made it clear they weren't from Earth at all. Malik's presence caused a brief ripple of silence, then murmurs. He could feel the weight of their stares, not hostile, but wary. This is the Watchpoint Council, Evelyn said, Earth's unofficial voice in the galactic underground. One of the men at the table, an older black man with a deep scar across his forehead, leaned forward. This is the kid who got the response? Evelyn nodded. Should have burned it, he muttered. Don't start. Another voice snapped, this time from a woman in a dark blue suit. We lost contact with station 12 hours after the response was sent. Whatever's happening now, it's not just about the message. It's about the timing. That word response kept echoing in Malik's mind. He stepped forward. What was in the message Earth sent? He asked. The one that said thank you? The table went silent again. Then Evelyn answered. It wasn't supposed to be a reply, she said slowly. It was a trigger. A coded signal buried in old Terran philosophy. In ancient language, something that only species with a deep understanding of consciousness would interpret fully. You sent a trap? Malik asked, frowning. No, she said. We sent an invitation, but it came with a key. A key to something humanity buried a long time ago. Malik's heart beat faster. Like what? Evelyn hesitated. Then she walked over to a panel on the wall and pressed her hand to it. A hologram appeared in the air-rotating symbols, a star map centered around Earth, and a strange spiral of numbers and equations. Evelyn turned to face the council. It's time. We told him about the archive. That word archive meant nothing to Malik, but judging by the tense expressions on everyone else's faces, it meant a whole lot more to them. The older man with the scar sighed heavily. You're really doing this? We don't even know if he's compatible. He's not compatible, Evelyn said. He's resonant. That word again. Recognized. Evelyn looked at Malik, her expression calm, but there was something behind it, fear. Hope? Maybe both. Long before the council watched us, she said, Earth was something else. A node. A seed. There was a network scattered across galaxies, built not with machines, but with thought, consciousness, memory, and Earth was part of it. Malik stepped closer to the projection, staring at the spiral. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, but something went wrong? He asked. Evelyn nodded. There was a fracture. The archive was sealed, and the last key was encoded not into machines, but into the human experience itself, into empathy, sacrifice, decisions made without logic. That's why they feared us. That's why they sent the threat. Because if someone resonant activated the archive again, it could unravel everything they control. The woman in blue finished. Malik stared at the projection, suddenly aware that he was shaking. So that note I got, that was part of the activation? Evelyn nodded. You didn't just trigger a response. You woke something. What happens if the archive opens? No one answered. That silence was louder than anything else they could have said. Meanwhile, far above the planet, in a quiet dark sector beyond Earth's upper orbit, something was moving, hidden behind layers of distortion fields and cloaking. Arrays, a massive ship larger than anything Earth had ever built, waited. Inside, the Galactic Council's enforcement fleet was preparing Dot in a chamber at the ship's core. Ambassador Kazir, of the Yetheri species, floated in meditation. His skin, pale as bone, shimmered with faint lines of light. When his eyes opened, the chamber grew colder. The Terrans have engaged the archive. A voice said from the shadows. I know, Kazir replied, standing slowly. You warned them. They ignored it. They didn't ignore, Kazir said. They understood. That's more dangerous. Another voice, sharper, almost metallic, cut through the room. Should we neutralize the planet? Kazir turned toward the sound. No, not yet. If the boy is who they say he is, we may be too late to stop what's coming. And somewhere, in a place beyond stars, beyond time as we understand it, the archive stirred. Images blinked into existence, snippets of Malik's life, his laughter, his loneliness, the moment he gave up his seat, the feel of that worn envelope in his pocket. It was watching, it was remembering, and it was waking up. Back on Earth, Malik left the council room feeling like the air was heavier. Evelyn walked beside. Him quiet now. Why me? He asked again, but this time his voice was tired, less confused, more real. Evelyn looked at him gently. Because sometimes the universe doesn't need warriors. It needs reminders. You gave someone your seat. You didn't know who she was. You just cared. That's all it takes? Malik asked, to unlock the past? She said, no. But to prove humanity's still ready to evolve? Maybe. Malik didn't know what scared him more, that she might be lying, or that she might be telling the truth. As they walked deeper into the facility, lights dimmed and flickered, and deep beneath the surface, a low hum began. The archive had seen him, and others were watching too. Some who wanted to guide him, some who wanted him gone before he could take another step. The choice still waited. But now the stakes were higher than anyone had imagined. Malik barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, the spiral from the archive pulsed behind his eyelids like a beacon, tugging at something deeper than thought. The world around him hadn't changed visibly. His apartment still smelled faintly of old carpet and lemon cleaner. His mom still left breakfast warming on the stove, but something under the surface was cracking. He could feel it, like the planet was holding its breath. At school the next day, nothing felt normal. Not the lockers, not the faces, not the dull buzz of morning announcements. People moved around him like they were underwater, or like he was. A few of his classmates gave him strange looks. One girl, Jessica, from his math class, hesitated, as if she was going to speak to him, but then turned away like she changed her mind. He felt like he was being watched, not by someone at school, by something else. Higher, older. Outside, dark clouds were rolling in faster than they should have. Not rain clouds. Something thicker. Off. He tried to ignore it, tried to push everything down and just act normal, but his phone buzzed with a message that made his breath catch. 1 hour. Meet at the edge. Bring nothing. Eat the edge. He knew where that meant. A stretch of crumbling concrete at the end of the old freight yard, where rusted shipping containers lined up like broken teeth. It used to be a hiding spot for skate crews and late-night hangouts. Now it was the meeting place for something far more serious. He didn't tell anyone. Just left when the lunch bell rang, slipping out of school like a shadow. When he got there, Evelyn was waiting. But she wasn't alone. 4 figures stood with her. 2 were human. The other 2 definitely weren't. One of the aliens looked like it was made of fractured light, barely holding a shape. The other towered over them all, armor-plated and eyes like molten gold, but it radiated a strange calm. Evelyn spoke first. They're part of the synthesis accord, old friends, and enemies of the council. Malik looked at them, nerves twisting. In his gut, they know about the archive? They helped build it, she said. The taller alien stepped forward. Its voice wasn't a sound. It was like pressure in Malik's bones. You carry the signal, it said. You open the seed. The archive sees you. Malik didn't know how to respond. I didn't mean to, but you did, it said. And now it will finish what it began. Evelyn touched his shoulder gently. We're close. But once you step forward, the council won't wait anymore. They've already started deploying interdiction fleets. Earth's window is closing. Malik blinked. So what do? We activate the core, Evelyn said. We go to the vault. The word made Malik shiver. He didn't know what it meant, not fully, but it carried weight like history, like gravity. Evelyn turned to the group. He's going to need protection. The glowing one flickered. The moment we cross into the vault field, their sensors will pick us up. They'll move fast. Let them come, the taller one said. But Evelyn looked tired now, her face worn, her hands trembling slightly. Won't come to destroy, she whispered. They'll come to silence. That's what they fear most. A human voice they don't control. That night, Malik and the team descended beneath the city again. Not to the council room, but deeper. Past old infrastructure tunnels, forgotten. Cold War bunkers, and places no map had marked in decades. As they moved, Evelyn told him fragments of the truth. The vault was buried before Earth had satellites. It was hidden beneath magnetic layers and false geology. Not even your satellites see it. The archive was split. One half stored across distant outposts, coded into species that could be trusted. The other half stored here. Malik walked in. Silence, his flashlight beam dancing over rough walls, twisted cables, and signs and languages he didn't recognize. Eventually, they reached a door, no lock, no handle. Just stone and metal fused together. Malik placed his hand on it without. Thinking it opened. Inside, the room was vast and round, with walls pulsing like a living thing. At the center, a crystal hung in midair, spinning slowly, threads of light woven around it like a web. Malik felt something pull at him, something like memory, but deeper. It recognizes you, Evelyn said softly. Why? He asked again, desperate for something solid. She shook her head. Because when the archive was built, it needed an anchor, a future host, someone far enough removed from its creators to be objective, but human enough to feel. Every few generations, someone is born who fits the signal. The last one was centuries ago. We thought it was lost. Malik looked at the crystal. So what do I do? You connect, said the glowing one. You let it in. And then what? No one answered. Outside, something hit Earth's upper atmosphere. A ripple spread across the planet's magnetic field, silent, invisible to the average person, but every sensor hidden in Earth's deep black defense arrays screamed. The Council fleet had arrived. 12 ships, each the size of a city, each designed not to invade, but to erase. Earth's weapons, its eye satellites, scrambled to track the movement, but the fleet didn't fire. Not yet. It just waited. Back in the vault, Malik stepped toward the crystal. The light from it was warm, not like fire or heat, but like memory. As he reached out, it pulsed once, then again. The floor beneath him trembled. Wait, Evelyn said sharply, but it was too late. The moment his fingertips brushed the light, the room filled with sound, not noise, but voices. Human voices, billions of them. Every act of kindness, every moment of bravery, grief, love, sacrifice. It hit him like a wave. He cried out and dropped to his knees, shaking. You're hearing the human record. Evelyn said. The archive doesn't store data. It stores us, our choices, our moments. Malik felt tears slip down his face. Good, the bad, the truth of what we are. Outside the vault, the first pulse beam from the Council's fleet lit the sky. Inside the vault, the archive's heartbeat quickened. Earth stood at the edge, and Malik stood at the center of it all.